So when it comes to repairing a relationship, it can be very natural to start thinking about what your ex-partner thinks, whether they're thinking about you, whether they're seeing that you're growing, whether they're seeing that you're changing. If you're trying to repair this relationship, it can become very easy to be focused on their opinion. Problem is that this focus on what they're thinking and what your ex thinks can become quite damaging and quite toxic. So in this video, I'm going to break down how to stop caring about what your ex thinks without being toxic, but also so you can grow into someone worth reconciling with. So the truth is that needing other people's approval, constantly needing validation, and worrying so much about other people's opinion is the fastest way to kill attraction. And I'm going to cut the BS here. If you are constantly wondering what your ex thinks of you, this means one thing, and that is that your center of gravity is still outside of yourself. And that energy that you're building in everything that you do and the way that you live your day-to-day, the way that you interact with your ex-partner, they're going to feel it. And this energy becomes quite unstable. It feels needy, it feels unattractive. So even if your ex-partner is not consciously aware of this, your vibe is going to basically say, please validate me. Please say that we're going to be back together. Please tell me that I'm doing well. And ultimately, no one wants to date a project. No one wants to date someone who is needing that validation. The truth is that attraction is not about appearing confident. It's about having the process to become the kind of person who leads themselves emotionally, mentally, and relationally. When you are focused so much on the way that your partner or ex-partner sees you, you end up subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, trying to convince them that you've changed. But you don't need to convince them that you've changed. You need to actually become someone different. And this is all part of real psychology. And there are different traps that keep you stuck in this externally focused mode when you're constantly thinking about your ex-partner. And ironically, the more that you stay in this trap of being externally focused on your ex-partner, the less likely they are to be drawn to you. So not caring about what your ex-partner thinks isn't about flipping a switch or faking aloofness, faking this I don't give a fuck attitude. That isn't what it is. That's ego in disguise. We are talking about a deep shift from externally referenced validation to internally referenced identity. So I want to break down what keeps you trapped in this externally referenced validation. So the first thing is what we call the actor-observer bias. This is something that my members and I talk about quite a lot. So this is where you think that your actions make you the good guy. The problem is that they think that you're the problem. So this is where you judge yourself by your intentions. I contacted them because I was just trying to talk things through. I asked them whether they saw that I'd grown or not because I care about their opinion. But they judge you by your actions. You keep pressuring me. You keep asking for validation. This is what we call the actor-observer bias. This is a blind spot in so many relationships. Unless you step outside of your own narrative and get radically honest about how your behavior is perceived, you're going to stay stuck defending yourself instead of growing. And this is shifting from what we call being the observer into becoming the actor, putting yourself into your partner's shoes and understanding their perception of you. Growth happens the moment that you say, this is how I came across to them. That's on me. I can shift that without betraying myself. I can shift my actions because this is a relationship, right? I can change my actions in order to change the dynamic of the relationship. The next trap is ego. Ego is just a mask for insecurity. So a lot of the advice that you find online, this X-back advice or screw women or screw guys or they don't care about you, all of this stop giving a fuck advice is just ego on steroids. This is where they tell you, just disconnect from them, act cold, go silent, get revenge. These actions are still reactive. This is still about them. This is still trying to perform in order to get some sort of reaction about them. All of this idea of the no contact rule, where you're trying to pull away in order to get them to see that you've changed. The truth is, real growth is when you can sit with the fact that maybe you did mess up the relationship. Maybe your actions did have an impact on your partner's feelings. Maybe your communication style was not great. It wasn't effective. Facing up to these facts And instead of collapsing into shame or trying to prove that you didn't do what you wanted to do, instead of doing that, you rebuild your identity from the inside out. So you strip the ego, you go into humility mode where you're humble. You face the facts and you start to become someone different. So you don't become attractive by proving that you're better. You become attractive by becoming someone who's not afraid of the truth. And this is one of the most crucial concepts, is that a lot of this ex-back advice can get into this idea of trying to sell yourself to your ex-partner, trying to shift their opinion of you. And what happens is that this builds this fake ego, this fake identity, instead of showing humility and understanding that you don't know what you don't know. And this is the truth, is that when you're taught to prove that you are someone different, that you are better, that you have changed, like all this ex-back advice gives you, when eventually you get tough truths, when eventually you get negative feedback from your partner or ex-partner, you crumble. You internally are unable to handle it because you have been developing these sales tactics and then you fumble the ball, because what it does is that it shows that you haven't actually grown. You have just developed skills to make it seem like you've grown. So this isn't actually growth. This is fake growth. This is surface level growth. This is faking confidence. So when your partner says, hey, I still think that you come across as needy, or hey, I still feel pressured by you, you end up getting in defensive mode, right? Because you care so much about what they think that you get into this habit of trying to persuade them and tell them that they're wrong. And this just shows that you care so much about their opinion that you're unwilling to face up to your own internal state. And this leads me on to my next point, which is you end up taking it personally. The truth is that when someone else, your partner, your ex-partner, other people, the world, judges you, withdraws from you, or rejects you, it's rarely about your core worth. You are valuable as a human being. You have inherent value as a human being. No one's arguing that. But when someone rejects you, when someone says, I don't want to be with you, or I want to break up with you, or I'm not attracted to you, this is about their nervous system. This is about their wounds. This is about their perception of who you were in a specific moment. Their reaction is real, but this reaction is not an absolute truth about you. The truth is that no one feels safe with someone who isn't safe within themselves, someone who doesn't have that control of their emotions in the important moments. And one of the biggest things that keeps you stuck is being stuck in this victim mindset. And this is very, very subtle, where a lot of people don't even notice it. So if you're telling yourself, my partner just doesn't see the real me, they misunderstood what I did, they don't understand where I'm coming from, they don't see my value, this may sound reasonable, but this mindset puts all of the power outside of you, because it creates a villain out of your ex-partner. And it keeps you in a loop of waiting for them to change, to understand, to come back. And this victim mindset can bleed into everything that you do. If you are constantly thinking about your partner, worrying about their opinion of you, what happens is that you're constantly putting this pressure on them to see you for who you are, rather than you embodying your actions. It shows that you're not confident enough in your changes for them to be able to see it themselves. So it's actually quite disrespectful to them, but it also puts an expectation on them that is created by you. You create this agreement that they should be seeing your changes. And when they fail to do that, then they become the villain to you and you become the victim. You become the victim of them. And what happens is that this puts all of the control out of your hands and into their hands. So this means that you stop growing. You stop looking at where you maybe still have blind spots, where you could be still missing something. You essentially say, I am some perfectly formed person, and the fact that this person doesn't see that, that's their fault. And this victim mindset, becoming a victim of the villain that you've created, pushes your partner away, because it comes out in everything that you do, in every interaction with them. You're constantly trying to prove yourself, and then if they don't see it, then you feel like a victim. You start to treat them differently, and ultimately what it does is it shows them that you haven't really changed that much. Growth means flipping the script. So asking yourself, what could I do differently? What can I have done differently? What in me developed and cultivated this dynamic? What of my actions is mine to own, not to shame myself, but to evolve? This in itself is self-leadership. And this is what separates adults from teenagers in dating. And this leads on to the final trap, which is the biggest mistake that keeps you trapped in this constantly trying to find validation from your ex-partner is when you're constantly trying to look better. This overcompensation. And this happens in one of two ways, either overcompensating with fake detachment. So this is where you pull away, you pretend that you don't care, you fake yourself into being this lone wolf. What happens is that this creates a dynamic where you seem emotionally unavailable, right? You're pretending that you don't care when your actions are showing that ultimately you care a lot. You care way too much, and it becomes obvious that you're overcompensating by faking it, because no one goes from I care so much about you to actually no, I don't care at all. So this inauthenticity becomes very obvious, and this is why when it comes to ex-back advice, this whole idea of the no contact rule is an overcompensation. It's a fake detachment. It's pretending that you don't care about your ex-partner. And this gives them emotional whiplash because you seem emotionally unavailable to yourself and to them. But then there's the other side of things where you can go into trauma dumping mode, which is where you are constantly pouring all of your emotions onto your ex-partner to prove that you've done the work. You're saying, I was such a terrible husband. I was so bad. I did everything wrong. You're totally right to shout at me. I feel so bad about it. I'm so sorry. Please, you've got to understand that I never realized what I was doing. All of this trauma dumping is still trying to prove that you are a different person. But ultimately, this now becomes about you. This becomes less about their feelings and understanding them. It becomes all about everything centered around what you've done, how you've changed, and how sorry you are. And this shows them that you still need external validation, because all of this trauma dumping ultimately is to get a response of, hey, don't worry about it. You're good. Everything's fine. You're a good person. I don't think you're a bad person. And this comes from still constantly worrying about their opinion, constantly thinking about what they're thinking about you. So ask yourself, who do I want to be when no one's watching? What traits would my future partner be drawn to? What traits do I want to embody to cultivate a healthy relationship? What values do I want to embody in conflict, not just in calm moments? You can't build a new identity if you're still shaped by their perception of your old one. So you can let their opinion inform you, but never let it define you. And that's the difference. The next step is to learn to regulate your nervous system before you speak or act. So before you text, before you reach out, before you try to have the talk, write a big letter to them, pause, breathe, and reset. Your ability to self-regulate is much more attractive than any perfectly worded message. Calm is magnetic. Safety is sexy. Stability is power. Not cold, not withdrawn, just present, grounded, and led from the inside. Next, it's important to stop trying to win them back and to start making peace with who you were. So yes, looking at your previous actions can hurt, but it's real. If your partner or ex-partner isn't coming back, could you still be proud of who you're becoming? If the answer is no, then your growth is still performative. Real transformation happens when you can say, I don't need to be chosen. I choose who I'm becoming. As soon as that clicks, then everything changes. The anxiety dies, the performance drops. And ironically, that's when our partner often comes back because you're not attached to the outcome. And this is the big difference that so many of my members find, is that once you detach from the outcome and focus on the process, everything starts to change. Because when you're constantly thinking about what your ex is thinking about you, whether they're thinking about coming back to the relationship, what their opinion is of you, what you need to do to become this perfect person for them, once you stop becoming attached to that one outcome and start looking at the process to grow into who you want to become, then this is where the change happens. Because your partner or ex-partner can start to see the self-respect, the self-discipline, and ultimately the change in who you are and the growth journey that you're on. And that's why so many of my members have so much success, is because they develop this internal identity of who they want to become rather than being defined with what their partner or ex-partner thinks of them. And that is a big shift. And if you do want to join the members and I, then feel free to join my Relationship Bootcamp, where you'll learn the same fundamental steps and tools that all of my members start with in order to start repairing, regrowing, and changing their relationships into healthy relationships moving forward. If you do want to join us, then click on the link in the description to grab your spot. The truth is that your ex-partner was never the mission. You are. So this isn't about getting your ex-partner back. This is about getting you back. Because if you do this right, if you make the right changes for you, and you start to focus on building your own self-identity, who you're becoming, then you don't just become someone that your ex-partner wants to get back. You become someone that you deeply respect, someone with direction, someone with integrity, someone with depth, someone with empathy, stability. And that is what makes the biggest change. Attraction isn't about being someone who's wanted. Attraction is about being someone who is centered. And this is why these performative changes, trying to persuade your partner that you've changed or persuading them to come back to you, backfires. I've actually done a deeper dive into this, into when you're contacting your ex-partner, the difference between the two. I'll link to that video, that deep dive video on the screen. But ultimately, shifting away from these performative measures, this no contact rule, this persuasion, and trying to pull your partner in, instead allowing them to be drawn in by who you're becoming. That's the biggest shift that so many of my members make. So I'm going to leave you with that deeper dive on the screen, and I will see you over there.